Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Morhonda of Bloomington.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown!
Oladipo to win it.
Another one!
He got
Another one!
Oladipo!
Another one! Huge hole! He's at the 30! He's gonna go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Galloway finds Rob Finnessy, who fires the three, and
He hit it!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It is Tuesday, so that means we're halfway here. Not halfway here. We're halfway to the halfway point. That's always a good thing, right? K-Bro.
Not quite hump day yet. Yep.
K-Bro without his headphones. Not a good thing. We'll get him hooked up there so we can hear him a lot better. But yeah, lots going on. We'll see about what the Mets are doing. And I meant to tell Joe, the producer, JTP2, that you need to start doing the Reds report, Reds-Cubs report, so we can see how far the Reds are going down each day. I'll talk to him about that later. But yeah, how are your Mets doing, by the way? I'll have to pull up the divisions to see what's happening. But how are your Mets doing?
Oh, unbelievable. Incredible. They won last night 11-5, and Eduardo Escobar hit for the cycle, which was something. Two-run triple in the bottom of the ninth to finish it off, and they beat the Padres in San Diego. They're out on the West Coast 11-5, so stayed up. Fortunately, with those West Coast games, you got to stay up late to watch them. So if I'm a little bleary today, you can blame the Mets for that, because
Blame the Mets.
Not working on that much sleep, but it was an exciting win, and they're rolling right now, 8.5 up on the Braves, and just got to keep it going. It's still a long season, and I think the Braves will be dangerous, but the Mets have a little something going on there, a little mojo right now, a little positive mojo, and I think Buck Showalter, the manager, it's really rubbing down on them.
Well, the Reds won. How about that, baby?
Yeah. Yeah, the Reds are playing better. Gotta give them credit. I really like that Hunter Green. I mean, I think he's a tremendously talented kid.
Let me tell you the difference between when you suck and when you're a different team. The Reds and the Royals, two of the worst teams in all of baseball. I think you would agree.
Yep.
There were 5 baseball games yesterday. The Reds had a game at home, and the Royals had a game at home. Astros, Angels, and Padres all also had games at home. Average attendance between the Astros, Angels, and Padres looks to be around 30,000. The average attendance for the Reds and the Royals is exactly about 10,000.
Yeah.
For a major league, wow. That's the difference right there, people. That's 3-1. 3-1. 3-1 in revenue, 3-1 in everything right there.
This is the thing owners in MLB have to realize, and I think that because the sport doesn't have a salary cap and because it's structured the way it is, there has been more revenue sharing throughout the league to support these owners, and this guy, but what Phil Castellini, like, where else are you going to go? That statement from the Reds owner at opening day, which is ridiculous. But hey, listen, what does that prove? You got to spend money to make money. You want 30,000 fans, put a product on the field that people are going to want to watch, and that's a winning product. And that's the bottom line. If you go on the cheap in a sport like baseball, you're not going to get the attendance. You're not going to get the fans because people don't want to go out to see a losing team.
No, they don't. They don't want to go out and see a losing team whose owner is talking badly to the fans for not going. Where else you gonna go? Well, if you're a Cincinnati fan, I guess you could drive up to see I can't say this, Cleveland play. I almost said their new word. I'm like,
yeah.
But Let's see. How about the standings in the NL Central? Woohoo! Always Major League Baseball's bastion of top level of play. But the Reds, what cracks me up is they're only one game under 500 in division play. Let's see, they're a 352 percentage now, though. They trail the Nationals. They trail the Athletics barely. Oh, thank goodness for the Royals. The Royals now the worst team in baseball. They've got that all by themselves.
Yep.
Now the Royals is a team that has won a World Series in the last 10 years.
2015.
Yeah.
They had but couldn't keep that team together,
Well, how can you in this market? I mean, I don't know how the fact that they were able to get to a World Series is amazing because they're a similar size as Cincinnati, right? Market wise.
Yep.
So yeah.
2014 and 2015, they went back-to-back years, lost to the Giants in 2014 and beat my New York Mets in 2015. Last year that we've been to the World Series also.
It's funny too. Every year in both leagues or the central divisions are always the worst. Do you ever notice that?
Well, you want to know why? A lot of smaller market teams, I think.
Yeah, those were all exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. The National League Central is nothing but small market teams. Cincinnati, now with the exception of Chicago, which they don't have that excuse.
The Cubs aren't spending like a big market team anymore, though. I mean, they were, when they won the World Series in 2016 in their heyday.
Yes. And they don't win like a big market team anymore.
Yeah, they just didn't sustain it. But I mean, the Cardinals have always been a team that they have excellent fans and they've always managed to sustain it. They have a great culture there of winning, and people are, players are comfortable there. And you have the Cardinal way, and I think you have a structure there in an organization that lends itself to winning all the time. And the Brewers have done a great job the last 5 years up in Milwaukee.
Wyatt says there's more people at a high school basketball game in Indiana than at an Oakland A's game this season. And
that is they're probably going to move to Las Vegas. It looks like. I would not be surprised if they end up in Las Vegas because they can't get the stadium.
Will Billy
they can't get the stadium situation figured out there? They're trying to build some waterfront stadium, but it's getting caught up in the politicians there. And I just think in the Bay Area too, can you really support two franchises? Go to Vegas like the Raiders did. You can kind of make your mark there, and you could kind of be the top dog in that region.
Will they be the Las Vegas A's?
Yeah, why not? They were the Philadelphia A's. They were the Kansas City A's.
Yeah,
and then they became the Oakland A's. So, you ever see Moneyball?
Oh man, it's a great. I love it.
Right. Yeah,
it is awesome.
I love that line from the late Philip Seymour Hoffman when he was playing Art Howe, and he we would call it that traded Brad Pitt, who obviously played Bean, had just traded Carlos Pena, and he goes, "You're killing this team."
I am playing Pena at first. No, you're not.
Because we traded Pena. Jonah Hill, how good was he in that movie? Also,
I mean, Philip, that line that he gave, it was like somebody just punched him in the gut, man. You're killing this team. Oh, it was like he was having a heart attack. Oh, it is. Yeah, one of Wyatt's favorites as well. That is. I don't know if it's one of the. Oh yeah, it is. It's awesome.
It's amazing. Yeah.
He actually watched it in all of his intelligence analytics courses. Yeah. Well, it's a thing. And that was a true story about the Red Sox. They tried to hire Billy Bean away, and they hired somebody else instead after he turned him down, and they used that same system.
Theo Epstein. Yep. I was covering the Red Sox in spring training at the time, and I remember getting a one-on-one. It was a big coup of Theo Epstein on the behind the batting cages on like one of the far fields in Fort Myers, and he laid out his whole philosophy and strategy of how he wanted to build the organization, Q&A, and it was very well read. I was very lucky. But Theo and I at the time were around the same age, so I developed a bond with him because he had all these older middle-aged sports writers at the time, and I was still in my early 30s, and I was able to, engender some goodwill with them.
Well, cool. But yeah, that's a cool story there as well. But we'll see how baseball rolls on. But man, I don't know, since a team like Cincinnati, I don't know how they're ever going to have a good team again.
No, they will. I think you just have to build it because when you look at teams like the Royals, and I even look at the Mets back in 2015 when they were owned by the Wilpons and they weren't spending the way they are now. What you have to do is you have to get a bushel load of good prospects, because you peak when you're between 25 and 30. And, before arbitration and before free agency, you just have to have that core together. That's a really good young core. That's what the Royals did. That's what the Mets did in 2015. And that's what the Reds have to do. They just have to really develop their prospects, develop the farm system, and have, hit on a bunch of guys. Like you have to have, I think, 5 or 6 kind of Hunter Greens, who I think is a pretty talented kid, but you have to have like 5 or 6 of those. And I think, the problem is, if I were them, I would try to trade Votto, get some prospects, or do something of that nature.
But that's all they do is trade everybody, though. They trade everybody.
I mean, Votto had been there long enough. Votto's had a great run, but yeah, at this kind of a season, you got to cut ties and you got to,
trade him just so he can play on a winner.
Yeah, and you can do that too. Yeah.
But yeah, it's I've given up. They'll never be good again, and that's okay. So what are you going to do?
I think the question is, will the Hoosiers be good again in basketball? It looks like that looks a little more promising, don't you think?
I don't think that's a question. I mean, I think.
Well, what's your definition of good, or will they be elite again? All right, let's put that.
That's okay now. Yes, I think they're trending in that direction right now. I brought this topic up yesterday. Look where the program was from the fans' perspective. Look at where they were 2 years ago. As down as they probably have ever been in this program. 4 years of Archie Miller, there's just not a lot. There's nothing to look forward to.
Yeah.
Fast forward 2 years, you're the projected favorite to win the Big Ten Conference. So
no question. I mean,
you're coming off your first NCAA tournament appearance. You've got all that stuff behind you. Boom, boom. You've got nothing but positive traction, positive recruiting coming in with a positive future on that front as well. So I think that it's already, that's already happening. That return is happening.
Yeah, I think the recruiting is really the biggest thing, and going out and getting 2 guys the level of Hood Schifino and Renault, who are top 30 guys. And if you keep stockpiling those kind of guys, it's going to pay dividends. And, Trace Jackson Davis was a top 30 guy coming out of high school, right? But he didn't have much around him in terms of that kind of talent. But I think that, you look at what they're doing on the recruiting end, and I think and he's recruiting nationally, and Archie recruited in state more than nationally. But
Archie tried to recruit nationally. No one would come play for him. Let's be clear about that. He tried. He had no success. No one would come play for him. He could not get outside recruits. He couldn't.
No, that's true too, to an extent, and you got to.
Not to an extent. I mean, it's go back and look.
Yeah. I think that this, like I said, that the way the team is constructed this year, you're going to have a chance to win the Big Ten, but as we've seen in the last 3 or 4 years, that doesn't mean you're going to go far in the tournament.
We'll talk about that too. Yeah, the style of play and all that. We'll talk about that as well. I think we've got to hit a break. We're at that time, I believe. Yeah.
We got Mike DeCourcy coming up, right?
Mike DeCourcy coming up today. Looking forward to that. Chronic Hoosier as well. So always fun. I saw that there was some soccer match on last night that I knew he was going to want to talk about. I'm like, oh, I better watch this. But I forget what it was. I'll have to look up the acronym because that's what I want to ask him about, the acronym. It was hilarious. It was European Union Football Association. I can't remember the first part of it, but it's this acronym of 4 things. Then it's 2 more words. And I'm like, why not just make a 6-letter acronym? I'll pull up the secret when we come back and figure that out. But lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friends at Remax Realty. If you're looking for a home in the Indianapolis area, reach out to our friend Cheryl Sizemore. Her 2 decades of experience may be the difference in you getting the home you want or not. Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. And, of course, the Wow Club. Make sure you go there and sign up and start earning dining dollars today. Apple App Store, Google Play Store. There's lots there, as you'll see on the My Wow Network. So you can order online and BB's Market, etc. We'll talk about that as well. Coming back with more Indiana Sports Beat with K-Bro and Mike DeCourcy here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Back after this.
We'll be right back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Whether you're visiting Bloomington or a Cutter, you need meet the Mets. Meet the Mets. Man, I'm out of creamer.
So Kevin, I was gonna ask you. I've actually been on this kind of trip with my dad for the past couple of years. We've been trying to hit up every MLB ballpark. Is City Field something I need to?
Oh yeah, you'd like it. Yep.
Okay.
It's really nice. There's a really nice kind of like promenade in left field. And you got great food out there. It's good walking around. They really did it right. And, I think it's better than the new Yankee Stadium. And I don't think I'm saying that just because I'm biased. I think most New Yorkers like Citi Field better than the new Yankee. The new Yankee Stadium is kind of, I guess, I don't know how to describe it. Just not as much character to it as Citi Field. Citi Field's got a lot more character to it. Let's put it that way. Yeah. A lot more walking around space, and you can see, they really did. Yeah, they did a really good job with it. And the rotunda is pretty cool. The Jackie Robinson Rotunda. And now they just put up a statue for Tom Seaver. It's good. Yeah. I take the train though. Some parking is a pain in the butt, and it's a little expensive, but to park there. But
I will definitely have to make that happen because I went to Yankee Stadium and we didn't have time to make it to Citi Field, and I was kind of sad about it because the game that I went to at Yankee Stadium actually got rained out before it even happened. So,
well, it's Citi Field is right by the airport. You know that, right?
Yep.
LaGuardia Airport. Yeah, so you have the planes flying overhead and stuff. Yeah. I go back to Shea. I kind of miss Shea, but Shea was a dump. But it was
Shea Stadium. I don't care if they're a dump. You think Wrigley Field is Wrigley Field not a dump? You think Fenway's not a dump?
I've never been to Wrigley. I've been to Fenway. But you want to know what? But like Wrigley and Fenway had a certain character to them because they're small and intimate. Shea was just like this big oval thing, and it didn't really have the character either. And Fenway has Fenway has all the bars and the restaurants. You got Cask and Flagon. You got all those, Shea, you've got a bunch of hubcap shocks outside of left field where they bury mobsters and stuff.
Beat Radio on the homepage or on the station every week, Monday through Friday. If we're not on a station where you live,
Not a neighborhood ballpark.
ask for Indiana Sports Beat Radio. This segment is brought to you by RE/MAX Advanced Realty, Indy Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back here on this Tuesday, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friends at the Wow Club. Make sure you go there and sign up for your Wow Club membership today, as they are taking care of us. And you can go to BB's Market and order. Welcome aboard, Mike DeCourcy. How are you, sir?
I am well, Jim. How are you? How are you, Kevin?
I couldn't be better. The Mets are in first place, 38-19. So things are life is good.
Meet the Mets. Meet the Mets. He gets to sing "Meet," and we're going to start. I told we were talking about this earlier, Mike. I've got Joe, the producer, filling in today for John, the producer. But I'm going to start having him do the Reds report so we can see how if they're in the bottom or not. They're fighting that. The Royals are helping out, taking over that bottom spot, but the Reds aren't giving up easily. They're not going to give away easily. What else? Oh yeah, what else was there? Something else in baseball I thought I talked about, but I'll figure that back out. Last night I did notice there was and I'm trying to pull it up. I wish I would have gotten to it quicker, but there was a soccer event on a match. Really, not an event. It was a match. I don't know what it was. A 4-letter acronym for European Football League.
Right.
I can't remember the first one. What's the acronym?
UEFA. UEFA, and don't ask me, United European Football Association. Something.
United. I just assumed United European Football Association. Yeah, but then there's something else. Something league.
The Nations League. What the Nations League is about is it was started to make friendly games more interesting rather than have just teams play each other in exhibitions. The idea was to have a competition in its stead. And that's and what it does is it creates more competitive games and a chance for players and teams to actually win something in those games when they're not qualifying for the World Cup or playing for the World Cup or qualifying for their continental championships. In Europe, you have to qualify to play in the Euros. You don't have to qualify. Well, the U.S. and Mexico, et cetera, don't have to qualify to play in the CONCACAF Gold Cup. And the same in South America. There's only 10 countries in South America, so they don't have to qualify to play in it. They just have to play in it in advance. So that in order to make those friendly games more interesting, they started the Nations League. What that does, though, is it makes it harder for teams like the United States to get friendly games against European competition. So you noticed in the last week, prior to the start of the CONCACAF Nations League, which will happen Friday night, will be the first game for the U.S. in the next cycle of that. They played Uruguay on Sunday, and they played Morocco last Wednesday as World Cup warm-up games. I think they would have liked to have played a couple of European teams, but that's not possible because of the Nations League being sort of in the way.
The Nations League, that sounds like something from like X-Men or something like that.
Yes, it does. That's a great point. It really does.
And I'm like, they went to the trouble to have all that acronym. I'm like, well, just finish it out. Just call it UEFA or UEFA. Just put the Nations League part on there too. Just UEFA.
Yeah, nobody would ever understand that. It's, I got yelled at last week about soccer having too many acronyms as it is. So,
well, I was getting ready to say, it is the most difficult. I'm trying, and it is the most difficult sport.
Alphabet soup.
To get a grasp on, not the game itself. Now, once you just the rules are the rules. That's pretty simple. You just have to take the time to to ask somebody. The rules are pretty damn simple in soccer. I have to say. I mean, but in that match last night, I don't know how this guy didn't get called for. Oh, he missed the goal. It didn't matter, but he was offsides. They didn't call it. But listen to me calling somebody offsides. If you only knew how funny that was, I'm like, this dude was offsides, man. They didn't call that. I can't believe that. It wasn't that long ago. I'm like, what the hell is offsides, man? How can you be offsides?
Jim, I will say that what they do now with the offside when they have video review is most of the times, unless it's just so clearly egregious, if it's even close, the linesman will allow the assistant referee. They don't like to be called linesman. Will allow the play to continue, and then once it's clear that the play is over, they'll call the offside because they don't want to stop a potential goal over something that's this close.
That's kind of like in football. That's exactly what they've gone to in football, where they used to potentially screw up a play by stopping it and then turn out to be wrong.
Yeah, every fumble now is a fumble, basically.
Yes.
Because if you allow the play to continue, you get a clear recovery, and then you decide whether or not you had the call right. That's kind of what's gone on in soccer now with video review as well. So that's why when you said the guy was clearly offside, that they didn't blow the whistle, or because you just sort it out after the fact, and then they'll bring the play back to the point of the foul of the infraction, and start from there. Once if it's a clear offside in the linesman's mind, if it's clearly offside, they'll bring the play back to that spot. But that's why you saw what you saw. So you're doing well. You're on top of things. You're getting there. But in terms of why it's hard to follow, I think that it's the concept that is a challenge for the American sports fan is that if you're in the NFL, you got one trophy to win. That's it. You got the Super Bowl, the Lombardi Trophy. I mean, you have little notches along the way, but that's really the only trophy. Like Liverpool just got done trying to win 4 trophies in 1 year, and won 2 of them. There were 4 competitions they were engaged in at the same time: the Premier League, the League Cup, the FA Cup, and the Champions League. Which 3 of those are staged in England, and the 4th is a continental European-wide competition. So it's hard to grasp onto that. It took me a while when I started following the sport to understand that concept of four competitions at once. When, for us, it's, you play in this and that's it. You're trying to win the championship and there's nothing else going on.
Well, here's a great analogy for people that don't get the difference between the Premier League and the Champions League, which are the 2 leagues that matter, I guess, as far as competition, non World Cup or Olympic type of competition. To me, the Premier League and the Champions League would be like if you had the NFL and USFL connected to it, and you played up and down out of that. Does that sound?
No.
If the USFL was the Champions League.
No, it would be more like it would be more like if there was football in Britain and France and Germany and Italy and Spain, and then the best teams from the top 4 teams from the US play the top 4 teams from all those other countries. That's Champions League. I think what you're thinking of, and I know this is hard, and I didn't know we were going to do a soccer tutorial here, but what you're thinking of is the Championship, which is the England 2nd division trying to give itself a fancy name. See that? I know it's hard, right? The Championship is basically just England's 2nd division. It's the league below the Premier League, just as AAA baseball is the league below the Major League Baseball. So that's what I think that's what you're getting caught on, because the USFL and then eventually we'll have the XFL again, are below the NFL. So if you could win the XFL and get promoted to the NFL, that's kind of what you're talking about.
There you go. For those who can't see me at the very start of Mike's question, if you would have seen me, you would just see me drop my head because I'm like, okay. I thought I was, and I'm not even close. I thought it was there, and I'm like, daggone it. But oh well. Hey, how about something a little more close to Americans' hearts, I guess. Ross, the Avalanche sweep the Oilers, and the Stanley Cup Finals are nearing. Not a huge hockey fan because I didn't grow up in a hockey town, although Southern Indiana down by Louisville, they did have some minor league hockey teams over the years, and they had some success there. It was fun. People would go out. I think it was more for the different type of experience, and I always thought that they did well enough, but I guess they didn't because none of them ended up staying. They nearly cut my thumb off. I was doing my early days in TV, and I was up shooting highlights. This is back when those big old wonky cameras, they were heavy. I was sitting on top of the tripod, and I'm trying to lower that thing, and it was too high, and hit this switch, and boy, the whole thing came down. Oh, yikes. I was like, put me on the ice, baby. But anyway, it was fun. I enjoyed it. I've always enjoyed going. But that's something that's in America, it's hit or miss too. Either it's a hockey, you grew up with it or you didn't. A lot of East Coasters or Northerners definitely more into it, probably. NHL's done a good job spreading out to Colorado, all the way down to Florida for that matter. Columbus, Ohio. But Stanley Cup Finals, man, coming around.
Yeah, I'm having a real trouble with where the NHL stands, Jim. I mean, we've had the same player injure, I believe, has knocked out 4 players from the game they were playing in or subsequent games as well. And that player has not been disciplined in any way, shape, or form. And the NHL has allowed that to go. And we're seeing, in the NBA Finals now, Draymond Green got into it with a couple of people on Sunday night.
How about this yesterday?
Like nobody, there were no victims. Nobody like carted off the floor. Nobody limping off the, having to drag themselves off the field of play. None of that. And yet it's a big deal. And yet in hockey, the same guy has taken 4 players out of the playoffs, or out of playoff games, I should say, and no discipline has been applied to him. That can't stand. There is no way that can work. That would not go on in any other sport, and the NHL just says, oh, well, it's no big deal. It's a legal hit. I just don't think that Americans are going to put up with that in the modern age. I mean, the people who run the league are not forward-thinking people. They are not thinking about where is this sport going to go. They think, hey, look, we're continuing to grow, so it's fine. But their growth is very limited, and it's not nearly what it could be. And I'm telling you, at some point, parents are going to stop having their kids play that game if that's the example that's shown. I don't see how every team in the league doesn't train at least one of their guys to do the things that this player's been doing. How do you go out into the next season and not have that as a weapon when it's clearly not only allowed but encouraged? I mean,
I thought everyone had an enforcer.
No, they don't do that anymore. But you don't need an enforcer anymore. You need a guy who's going to do what this player has been doing and just subtly get into the head of opposing players. And I don't mean like psychologically, I mean physically. And that's happened, as I said, 4 times in these playoffs. And it happened twice in the Pittsburgh series for the Rangers, and it happened twice in the Carolina series. It hasn't happened yet, I don't believe, or it might have happened once in the Tampa series. I'm not sure if that player had to leave the game. I'd have to look that up. But I mean, it's just too much. And it's clearly being rewarded by the fact that the Rangers are continuing to advance in the playoffs. So if I'm an NHL team next year, how do I not make that a part of my game? I think the NHL, I can't stomach that. Being it would be as if you had a pitcher who every time he got up, he hit a player in the head, and everybody just said, okay, that's cool. Take your base, move along. That's that. That's not what baseball does. It's not what football does. And it's clearly not what basketball does, because Draymond Green can't even get away with, barking at a player, let alone, maybe taking out his legs as he tries to make a layup. I mean, if Draymond, look, we saw what happened when Draymond took out a Grizzlies player by pulling onto his jersey. He was gone. That was it. He didn't play anymore. But that's not what's happening in the NHL.
We talked about that yesterday. If the funny thing is, and you mentioned this era, because that's the key. If this was back in the Bird era, I'm like, Draymond Green is a punk. He's nobody. Bill Lambier's probably knocking him into the third row. Seriously, I mean, you think back to those. Even Bird got into scraps, but not Draymond Green is always doing this crap. It's just this stuff. Whether it's dragging your leg across somebody or that's the crap that I can't. When you're on the ground, that ticky-tack crap that he does drives me insane. But more importantly, he was this close to being lost to his team, and that after them losing game one, that could have been series changing for them.
That's what he believes his job to be, so to speak. Is to find that line and stay on the proper side of it. And he has to this point in the NBA Finals. He did not, obviously, in the Memphis series in that one particular game. I think it was Brandon Clark he pulled down. That in that game, he didn't stay on the right side of it. I'm sure that he was trying to stay. I'm sure that he thought that he could get away with that, Kevin. I think that that's what he thought, and he wound up wrong, and so he filed that away. Okay, that's one I can't pull.
I guess with interesting in your point, going back to hockey, do you think Gary Bettman wants a New York team in the Stanley Cup Finals?
I think he would. I think it's something that he would embrace, absolutely. And I think it. I don't think there's any problem with the Rangers making the finals. They've got a good young team. They don't need that nonsense. Although they apparently did against Pittsburgh. I mean, they were outplayed for much of that series until Sidney Crosby was taken out in the potential clincher for the Penguins, and then they ended up losing 3 consecutive games. So, I will say though that I don't know that necessarily is specific to New York or the Rangers. I mean, it could have been any team, and I think it would have gotten the same treatment. That they encourage that. They don't seem to want to police it. The NHL's, if you look at the NHL's player safety division, there was a time when they had a former enforcer, as Jim mentioned, running the deal. I mean, how do you think that you're going to get an objective opinion when that was the player's career? I just don't. I think the NHL is as broken a league. People talk about the NCAA. Like the NHL calls up the NCAA for tips, man. That's how badly they're working.
Oh, boom, bada bam. That's bad. Well, is baseball. All these leagues, I'm not saying NCAA, but the leagues used to have strong commissioners. The Big Ten had a strong commissioner. The NFL always does. NBA, they're doing fine. Baseball, The funny thing is, half the people don't even know the baseball commissioner's name anymore. That's not good. Hockey, the same thing. You've got to have great leadership. Thanks, Joe. We got lots more to talk about. We'll do that when we come back. I'm going to talk about Jimbo Fisher and Nick Saban. I don't think I've gotten to do that with Mike and or Kevin. So that plus much more about Indiana. What's going on with them? Can they sustain a rise back to the top? We'll talk about all that and more when we come back here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friends at BB's Market, all part of the WOW Network. Make sure you go join the WOW Club because you can order online from BB's Market, have all these great, delicious steaks sent to you, just like you do from other places. I almost said the name, but that much more with Kevin Brockway and Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News when we come back.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Whether you're visiting Bloomington or a Cutter, you need... Oh, mama, I'm in fear for my life from the long arm of the law. I don't know why that song comes into my head sometimes, but I like it.
It's a good song.
It is a good song. Jimbo Fisher and Nick Saban. Man, how fast did Nick Saban shut up? I've never seen somebody of bigger stature say something and crawl back into a hole faster in my life than Nick Saban did the minute Jim Fisher said, you want to talk about, basically, you want to talk about skeletons? I know where some of them are buried. He was there. So, boy, I mean, whoop.
Yep.
It reminded me of that. I can never remember this kid's name, but they were Alabama was getting ready to play in the national championship game. And this kid, it's one of my favorite clips of all time. Someone asked this guy if he had seen Kyler Murray and was worried about him or whatever. And he started, I have not seen Kyler Murray. And I don't think you could tell he's getting ready. I think the question was how good he is. You could tell he's getting ready to say, I don't think he's that good. As you could tell, I forget how it was that's basically what he was getting ready to say. And boy, in mid-sentence, it was like Nick Saban reached down from the heavens and grabbed him by the throat, and he just shut up and coughed. No, I'm good. And he just stopped. And I'm like going, oh man, you talk about stopping a bad statement. I don't know that I've ever seen a worse statement that was coming, stopped right on the precipice. And I'm like, man, did Nick Saban reach down and grab him by the throat? Do you remember, Kevin, what I'm talking about?
I don't remember it in relation to Kyler Murray.
Yeah, I'll have to pull that clip up.
30 seconds.
Alabama lineman responding to Kyler Murray question. Alabama lineman responding to Kyler Murray question. RVs and pilots. See dealer for financing deals. Andy Moore Honda, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. Get more to your door with AndyMooreHonda.com.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Southern Stone Restaurant. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back on this Tuesday, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. As always, some storms yesterday. Doesn't look great out there right now. I'm not sure what the weather is. Right before we left, I was talking about that quote from a few years ago when Alabama was about to take on the Sooners in the semifinals game back then, but it was Queenan Williams. He was probably playing in the NFL now.
Playing for the Jets, yeah.
Meet the Jets. But he was asked.
He could do that with every team. He could do that with the Nets too, right?
I know. Meet the Jets, Mets, Jets, and the Nets.
Any team that I follow, yeah.
Oh, here it is. This is just so funny. I've got to play this. So he was asked about a question about Kyler Murray. And I just love this.
Have you gone up against any quarterback that slightly resembles Kyler Murray? Now I don't feel like I have going against a quarterback slightly resembling Kyler Murray, but I feel like Kyler Murray is not where everybody.
What's that?
No, I'm good.
That is just one of my all-time favorites. I'm like, Nick Saban reached down as a ghost and put his hand around his throat and shut him up and made him cough. I'm good. No, I'm good. No one has the presence of mind. I'm like, how did he have the presence of mind? That because he was gone. He was already going. And boy, oh boy, you have no idea if I could do that where I might be in life. That's just funny. It's just one of my favorites, man. And speaking of an old Alabama person, I haven't gotten to talk to you about the Jimbo Fisher, Nick Saban flap up. And in the break, I was talking about, I don't think I've ever seen somebody shut up so quickly as Nick Saban did. The second Jimbo Fisher, buddy, jumped up. And for those not familiar, Jimbo Fisher, former assistant to Nick Saban, as is many big-time coaches now, but the longtime coach at Florida State, now at Texas A&M. But Nick Saban, for whatever reason, of all people to call anybody out, decides to call out Texas A&M basically because they've got a jump on the NIL, probably bigger than anybody in the country. They've got a NIL bankroll put together that's over $25 million. That we know of, and most of that will be geared towards football. And he called him out for buying players, which is laughable considering most of us know that Alabama has not spent the last decade plus where they are on accolades. But Jimbo Fisher comes right out and said he knows where the bodies are buried and basically let Saban know that. And Saban shut up almost instantaneously, Mike.
Well, there was also the admonition by the SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey to both men to cool it.
Well, because they knew the entire SEC could be exposed.
Yeah, it was an entertaining episode to see that. Some people, there are a lot of people, younger people, mostly younger people than me in the business who like are anarchists about sports. Like the more anarchy they can see, the more they're entertained, more so than the games themselves. And I'm not one of those people. I'm entertained enough by the games, but that's one where I got amused because the whole enterprise of college football is so backward in the way they operate their competition more than anything. I mean, the sport itself is beautiful, and the structure of the sport is a train wreck. And this is one you can't blame on the NCAA because they basically have nothing to do with it. This is the way college football is run, and the way its championship is decided is a joke. So to have a little bit of a hornet's nest stirred up there within that joke, I think is great because eventually maybe it leads to some progress. If there's some competition among the coaches, real competition, maybe eventually it leads to some progress in the way the sport is contested.
I'm surprised, Kevin. These coaches know what's going on. The guys who aren't cheating before, they knew who was. And I'm surprised that over time they didn't finally just get together and say, I'm sick of it. Sick of the same big dogs getting away with it and speaking out in some fashion, some form. That never happened really until you call a guy out now. That's a whole different story. He's going to come running like Jimbo Fisher did. But other than that, they keep the code, man.
Yeah, that's what I think it is. I think it's a code. It's kind of similar to, they refer to the blue wall and police corruption.
You never know when you're going to end up on one of those staffs.
I think there's a code. I think there's a code among coaches. And you can go all the way back to Bear Bryant, right? Who is Bear Bryant's lead recruiter with Jackie Sherrill. And for the coaches, if you were a head coach, you always say, get the player. Don't tell me how you got the player. Right. That was kind of the way it was framed. And you kind of had to make your bones as an assistant coach to get player before you were the head guy, and you did it. So, I think that's probably the way that the system works in football and in major college basketball as well. And there's a lot of plausible deniability to go around. And we've seen, certainly the FBI probe in college basketball. And now we've seen this bickering between Saban and Jimbo. And Jimbo worked under Saban, so Jimbo probably knows as well as anyone, right, how the sausage is made. So it's but now that we're in this NIL era, what did you see Ryan Day's comment on what it'll take to keep Ohio State afloat? He said $13 million.
Yeah, at a meeting. They've got, I mean, they're basically these programs, Mike, which we already knew this. Those programs already were like this. They basically have a budget that is bigger than most athletic departments. These schools, like football programs like Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, these 100,000 seat stadium schools, the Alabamas, all Clemson's, they're just money juggernauts. How much? I mean, what are they making? $6 million a game at Michigan with 110,000 people? They charge the media $55 for parking. They're making money on everything. I think if you breathe air inside the stadium, there's a surcharge. I mean, they make more money than anyone. I think they have a printer under the stadium where they just are printing it out. So, which NIL, we'll see how much NIL helps Michigan because they'll have the money. They should be right back there. But anyway, I don't want to get off topic. What we were talking about.
Well, I will say that I'm not casting any aspersions against anyone, but a lot of the criticism of the arrival of name, image, and likeness, a lot of the gloom and doom stories, because it's got to be bad, right? It can't be good. It has to be bad. So a lot of the gloom and doom questions are, well, how won't this divert money away from the donations that were made to the institution, and how will they survive without it? And my first thought was, how do you know that there's been none of this monetary activity that you just didn't know about? I mean, we know that at some schools players have been bought. I'm not casting any aspersions against any particular school, but to think that no one was paying to get players is more than a bit naive. So now the people who were engaged in that activity don't have to do it underneath the table now. They can join these collectives if they wish, and that money winds up in the players' hands, and maybe it helps them get an extra quarterback or whatever. I don't think it necessarily. The idea that name, image, and likeness is going to ruin college sports is the most absurd construct that I think that we've seen developed, by fans on Twitter, or in some cases media personnel. Name, image, and likeness isn't going to hurt college sports at all. If anything, it's going to help. And we've seen that with players making wise choices to return, rather than just say, look, I mean, I've been doing this for 3 years and it doesn't look like I'm going to make any money here. So I'll just go make a little money wherever I can. Players don't have to do that now. So it's actually been a boon to the high profile sports at the very least. And maybe, hey, I was speaking with a guy who plays running back at an Ivy League school last week. I was speaking with him, and he said he has an NIL deal. So it's not just the SEC, man. It's the Ivy League too.
It's everywhere. I mean, and we had a question earlier from Robert. He says, regarding IU basketball, the longer term question, can they not only rise, they're starting to rise back to where fans want to see them. And it's not laid out there, but this is basically on the backs of NIL. Malik Renaud is not here without NIL. Trace Jackson Davis probably doesn't come back without NIL.
I think that's true. I think in an earlier era of 3-4 years ago, I think Trace would have gone and probably gotten a two-way deal, and he'd have made, two-way deal is a good salary, but it's not overwhelming. And he can do this, and then if he continues to improve as an offensive player, as we've discussed before, I mean, the first round is not out of the question for him. He just has to get there. He's certainly dynamic enough, but he's got to show he can play away from the basket, especially at the offensive end. And I think he'll show defensively that he'll be fine in space. So the question from Robert is, can they be elite? Can they sustain it? I mean, you have to be it before you can sustain it. I mean, you have to get there, and they got better this year and made the tournament, and advanced at least into the round of 64. But to sustain, you have to arrive before you can worry about sustaining. I certainly believe that Indiana has the ability to sustain an elite program. It's one of the best supported programs in the Big Ten, and we've seen Michigan sustain high level. We've seen Michigan State sustain an NCAA tournament streak that goes on for decades. So absolutely Indiana can. But the first thing you have to do is get there, and getting there is a lot of the hardest part, because once you've shown you can do it, then players start to believe and want to be a part of it.
And the recruiting wins that they've gotten now is going to be a big push because that they landed a big time class. They hadn't quite done that. They've gotten good players, but they have not landed this big class. And now, so they're making a splash. They're going to go play Arizona. They're going to go play Kansas. They could potentially play Duke or North Carolina. Seriously, in the Big Ten ACC Challenge.
Right.
Because that's they want those marquee games. And
you remember, Jim and Kevin, even when Indiana wasn't successful or was a level below the top of the Big Ten, they were still getting marquee games in that ACC Big Ten Challenge because their ratings have always been good. Indiana's
still a draw, man.
Yeah, Indiana's name resonates, and its fan base is passionate, and so you would see a lot of years when Indiana was maybe going to be the 6th or 7th place team in the Big Ten. Oh, they're playing Duke. Like, wow. Yeah. And it wasn't all, it was kind of tough on the poor Hoosiers to have to go down to Duke in certain circumstances or play Carolina. Now they rose up a couple of those times.
I made that drive during the Archie Miller era. That was tough.
And it happened during Tom's era too, as well. You remember they played at home. I think it was in 15 or 16. They played Carolina. I think it was 16. They played Carolina coming off the Final Four, the buzzer beater loss, and on the way to a championship, and beat them at Assembly Hall. But that, with a team that wasn't one of the best Indiana teams. So I don't have any doubt, like you said. I mean, they're going to play. I would suspect they'll play Carolina or Duke in that challenge, with the way the offseason has gone for the Big Ten. When the Michigan guys left school, Diabate and Caleb Houston, and they were expected to be maybe the best team in the conference next year, but they're gone. So it has the NBA draft process has not been super kind to Big Ten strength and depth, but it has been to Indiana with Trace coming back.
I think you guys talk about non-conference, and I find this interesting in my 3 years that I've covered the team, because, I look and they've beaten FSU, right, in the Big Ten ACC, and they've had some decent non-conference wins. I think the bigger problem for Indiana sustaining success is have a winning record in your conference, have a winning record, be a top 4 team in the Big Ten perennially, because if you do that, you're going to be a perennial top 25 team. You're going to have a high seed in the NCAA tournament. And, that 20-game league schedule is a behemoth, but you have to sustain that. And, not have those slip-ups, not go to Penn State and lose at Penn State on the road. Take care of Rutgers at home on senior day. I think those are the things right now that's holding Indiana back. But it's been a tough league, and it is a tough league.
Right.
But if you want to be considered that, I don't think in my 3 years that I've covered the team, they've had a winning record in the conference yet. And yet, they made the NCAA tournament this year because the Big Ten was strong and they had the late run in the Big Ten tournament that helped them. But that's where you've got to really, and I think Mike Woodson, to his credit, talked about winning the Big Ten. They didn't do it. And they had a nice run in the Big Ten tournament where, if Bohannon doesn't make that crazy shot against Iowa, in the Iowa game in the semifinal, maybe they make the Big Ten tournament finals. But I think that's where the focus has to be. And in terms of, you talk about sustain a season, do it in January and February. Don't have those lulls where you can have that really nice dominant season. And, maybe this year they have the talent to do it and the experience too, with Race Thompson and Trace and guys coming back that have been through it before.
Yeah, I think that they have one of the obstacles for them as they have tried to grow through this last several years is that the last 3 years in the Big Ten have been I've been at the Big Ten Network since 2010. They have been 3 of the 4 strongest years the league's had. Now in 13, when IU had Victor and Cody, and Michigan made the championship game with Trey Burke as their point guard, and Michigan State was terrific as well. There were more high-level teams in the league in 2013 than in any subsequent year into very top. But the depth of the league in 20, 21, and 22, it's just been really difficult to navigate. And I think that's one of the things that's held Indiana back and some other programs as well, is just trying to get through those choppy waters. It's been really hard, and they haven't been able to stay on the right side of that. But this is an opportunity when, as I said, with Michigan losing players, Illinois losing Kofi Coburn, although they did restock pretty well with transfers, with so many different players, meeting the regular end of their careers as well. Rutgers lost several players in that way. So with Wisconsin, of course, losing Johnny Davis and some others. So the league looks like it's ready to be overtaken, so to speak. This is a huge opportunity for the Hoosiers, for them to move forward with what they have back, with what they're bringing in. This is a big opportunity for them. And if they don't take advantage of it, it will be, it will hurt them in the long run. This is a enormous year for Indiana basketball in the way that 13 was for Tom Crean's Hoosiers, and it kind of, although they had a great year, it kind of hurt them when they lost in the Sweet 16 to Syracuse in the way that they did. I think this is a big year for the Hoosiers for Mike Woodson's Hoosiers in the same way. Everything's set up for them to succeed, and if they succeed, it will have rewards that go beyond this season. And if they don't, it'll be even harder to get back in subsequent years.
I agree, and I think that it is definitely it's already propelled Indiana in that space, and I think that they will remain there because the recruiting is at a level, and they had that engine going right at the right time, and it hit at the right time with the staff that they have. And Mike Woodson has to be able to walk around with his head up way high, because he came into a situation where it was dire. I mean, the worst that the program had ever been. And 2 years later, he's got them listed as a favorite to win the conference by most people, as one of the favorites, I should say, to win the conference, including me. And I'm hard, and I don't hand that out. So, yeah, I agree. And just notice Keon Brooks Jr. transferring to Washington from Kentucky, the former Indiana prospect from Fort Wayne. So, man, you talk about something that just never panned out. Nothing ever happened for him at Kentucky.
I saw Keon as a high school prospect at the Peach Jam and sat next to Cal, actually, as he watched him. And, I didn't see him as a Kentucky player, to be honest with you. I didn't think that I didn't think he was able to swim in those waters as rapidly as kind of Kentucky expects you to, and as a lot of times as as rapidly as the players expect themselves to. I thought he was a player that was 3 years away from being a significant contributor. I mean, in his third year, I thought he would be, and he was. But to develop into the player he wants to be honest, he can't play at Kentucky because he needs more shots to become the pro prospect that he wants to be. He's got to get more shots.
Do you know how many 3-point shots he has made in his career at Kentucky?
I do not know the number on that.
Well, I wouldn't if I wasn't reading this, and I'm
Right.
doing it only because I'm shocked. 18.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm talking about. I mean, but if you, and there's no chart on this, but if you had 12 to 16 foot shots, and you could probably find it in an advanced analytics site somewhere, but 12 to 16, he's been really good. But to become the pro he wants to be, he needs to make 3-point shots, and he needs to be in a program where they can facilitate that. Kentucky can't do that because if he misses 2 in a row, they're in trouble, and all of a sudden, fans are yelling at Calipari because he lost in the semi or in the first round of the NCAA tournament. So this is a mutual parting in the very real sense. They really like him. I talked to Keon 2 weeks ago, and he had nothing but good things to say about his time at Kentucky. But I think the unspoken part of it was that to develop as a player, he needs to be more featured than they could afford. And he needs more work on his perimeter game. Now he's going to have to do that himself. I mean, right. He's the one that has to stretch it out.
That's the Trace Jackson Davis story all over
exactly. In a different way, because Trace has been an All-America player, even though he hasn't been a successful perimeter player. But it's the same concept. You have to spend this summer in the way that Ayo Dosunmu did in the summer of 2020. You have to spend this summer changing who you are as a player. And no one is responsible for that more than you are. And he's got the ability to do that. If you can make 16-foot shots, you can become a 20-foot shooter, just as guys who were 20-foot shooters in college become 23-foot shooters in the NBA. I mean, like Steph Curry was shooting from 25 when he was at Davidson, but there's only one of him. Everybody else has to add those extra 2 or 3 feet onto their game in order to be successful NBA players. So it's doable. You just have to do the work, and it's a lot of work.
It certainly is. Mike, I cannot thank you enough, man. I think I could sit here and go all day long. There's so much stuff to talk about right now with the LIV and golf. Dustin Johnson just resigned from the PGA, hopes to play in the U.S. Open, but he was paid $200 million just to go to this new tour. I don't know what Phil Mickelson got. Tiger reportedly turned down an offer in the high 9 figures, which means it's over $500 million, probably $750 million. He turned down, and I'm guessing where that number is, but it's somewhere between $500 million and $1 billion, which I'm going to go with $750 million. So he turned down $750 million just to come there. Not his winnings. He could have, and the winnings are probably going to be astronomical as well. But there's no way that if they keep picking at the other guys, they don't have to, if they don't get the stars, but start picking at the guys that are right under them, then the PGA will be left with an all-star tour. And
but here's the thing, Jim. I mean, okay, so if they don't get the guys like the real players, the guys who are great players on the tour now, Brooks Koepka, guys like that. If they don't get them, like, you won't know it's any difference. Right. I mean, you could round up like the best amateur players in various country club type settings that win the state amateur and all that, and make them PGA Tour players, and you're not gonna, you are not going to see the difference. I mean, you'll see like they won't win. They won't beat Koepka, but it won't change the viewing experience for golf fans. So the key for the PGA is maintaining access. The PGA Tour is maintaining access to the major tournaments. Now you can get into the U.S. Open because it's an open tournament. So Dustin can get in there because the PGA Tour can't keep him out, but they can keep him out perhaps of the PGA. They can keep him out perhaps of the Masters. Those are the two that the PGA Tour can maybe try to construct a wall around. We'll see whether that happens or not.
Yeah, the one thing this is amazing to me is I don't think no other sports league in the history of sports has faced a competitor with the full resources to accomplish their goal like this LIV and PGA, because USFL, blah, blah, yada, all the other leagues that have all come and gone. No one has ever had the resources that this LIV does. I mean, it's basically monopoly money that they're playing with. And so, and I'm shocked that they haven't had more success. If it wasn't for the moral part of it, man, where would the PGA be right now?
Well, I'll be frank. I mean, I don't think that's it. I don't think it's the moral part of it. No,
really?
I don't. I don't think that's how golfers are wired. Professional golfers are wired. I think it's more the history of the tournaments, the history of the PGA Tour.
Yeah, but if they all leave, they can't keep them. If they were all go over there,
if they were all to leave, I think, Jim, I think professional golf would plummet in interest, and I think there's an understanding.
Well, the PGA would have to let them play both. That's the thing, and they would play in the major events. But yes, I agree. The rest of professional golf would plummet because who cares about the Sony Open that pays $2 million to the winner when you're playing in an event that could possibly pay $200 million.
No, the events aren't that lucrative. I mean, they have some guaranteed contracts for certain players that in order to try to act as a lure, but they are more lucrative generally than the PGA tournaments are, and more importantly, they don't have a cut. So the baseline for a week for a player is something like 150 grand. So if you're in the tournament, you're making 150 grand, and if you're in, like you said, I don't know, the Sony Open or whatever, you could make that, but you also could make basically zero. So that's the problem that the PGA has relative to that. But I think there's an understanding that if more players took the LIV money, that they would destroy what they've built. And hey, let me tell you, it may not be that lucrative. It may not be LIV lucrative, but it's a hell of a way to make a hell of a living. I mean, those guys make big bank. And I think there's an understanding that if you look at what happened with kart and IndyCar racing, when you had to split there, it's taken 2 decades to get it back. You don't think that can happen in the golf tour? And I think those players understand that.
This happened in professional rodeo even. I mean, only because I've, follow that world, do I know that, but it's the same thing. It doesn't even matter the sport. There's always going to be someone when you have like NASCAR is another example. You've got a family that runs that sport, the France family, which is highly unusual. But when you have a group that's running, and then you've got the other group, which is the drivers in that deal, boy, they take that show elsewhere, but they ban them. Same thing with rodeo. The Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association would ban the guys if they were go to these other events. So we'll see how it works out, but man, we've gone way long, and I apologize.
Let me say, when I talked about that split, the Indy racing split, there were no Saudis on either side. I'm not casting any aspersions there. I'm just saying that when they split, it took 20 years to get IndyCar back to where it is now, which is in a pretty good spot. Yes. It took a very, so that's what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about the split, not necessarily the actors on either side.
Right. No, I get it. And speaking of which, we'll talk about the Detroit Grand Prix next with Kevin. Will Power gets him a nice win. Mike DeCourcy, what's up next for you with the sporting news?
I got done writing an article. I'm not sure when it's going to appear about drafting like the overlooked players. You look at the NBA Finals, and you got Draymond Green and Grant Williams and Peyton Pritchard out there, and how do you find those guys? What do you look for to find the overlooked gem who somehow was not overlooked when he was a college superstar? That those guys have made a big difference in these NBA playoffs, and so talked a little bit about that relative to the NBA draft, which comes up next week.
Make sure you give him a follow if you don't already, which would be crazy, and go to the Sporting News and be a subscriber. Great content. Are they the oldest remaining?
Yes, 1886, man.
Come on! I wasn't even thinking that, man. I was thinking,
yeah. I mean, we were like 100 years old when Sports Illustrated came along, or not quite 100, maybe 70.
Were you an intern?
Yes, I was. Yes.
I'm kidding. I don't say that because he even seems like Mike is timeless. But 1886. Why the hell would anyone start a sports publication in 1886? It had to be
somebody had to cover baseball, man.
I was going to say, did it start in New York or Chicago?
St. Louis. St. Louis.
They had to cover the Cincinnati Red Stockings, right? That's what they were back then or something.
Yes.
Oh man.
Three Fingers Brown and Wee Willie Keeler, or
put it on your docket. That's something we need to talk about next week for all these Cardinal fans that are on here. That's a great story in and of itself. Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Kev.
You bet. Hey, we've got lots more coming up as Chronic Hoosier will join us. Brought to you by good friends at Southern Stone Restaurant, located in Patterson and Rogers in Bloomington, part of the WOW network. Make sure you go and sign up for your WOW Club card. It's a free app. Everything's free. It doesn't cost a thing. They'll send you bonuses and all kinds of things you can use. Just go to your Apple App Store or Google Play Store to do that and get signed up for the WOW Club. They have a multitude of things, and they are a proud sponsor of IU Athletics. So help those who help us and who help you. Back with Chronic Hoosier right after this.
Yeah, I guess that was the.
We didn't hear the commercials, by the way, Joe. Just an FYI.
Yeah.
You didn't hear the commercials at all?
Nope, not that time. So just check that when you get done at this point, at this segment, to make sure that it went in right.
So this is the last year that they raced in Belle Isle for the Detroit Grand Prix, and they're going to move to a downtown course next year.
What's up, Chronic?
What's going on?
How you doing, brother?
Oh, I'm living the dream.
Did Kevin, Will Power jump in the fountain? You have to, right?
Yeah. They have a picture of him here jumping into the fountain.
I didn't see that. I fell asleep watching. I didn't get to watch the finish till last night. How was your weekend, Chronic?
Oh, it was busy, man. We are officially in the full summer swing of things, where it's just nonstop go. But this was a good one. Got to do 3 nights up at Deer Creek with a bunch of friends from way back.
Oh, for fish?
Yes.
See, I'm on it, man. I'm on it. 3 days.
My 144th, 45th, and 46th shows.
Get out of here.
Kid you not, man. Used to have a lot of fun before kids.
Dude. Well, how the hell did you have time to do anything? How'd you have time to go to school?
Well, I used to bartend when I was in school. So, things slowed up during the summer and you're sitting on a bunch of cash with nothing to do. So you just jump in the car and go buy some tickets.
Never been in that situation. Sitting on a bunch of cash, huh?
Well, when you got no expenses, you don't have a mortgage, you don't have insurance, car payments, life was simpler.
When was their big run?
Shit, dude. They are in their 4th generation. It's literally 4.0 right now.
Right.
And I'm still not even sure when those eras switch, but I picked them up in 93. And that's when they started, moving from clubs to arenas.
Now, see, I always ask people because I don't know. I know that, the Stones still, it doesn't matter where they go, the last time I saw them was 16 in Mexico City, and they were leaving there to go to Cuba to do a free show. We'll talk more about it on air. HRVs and pilots. See dealer for financing deals. Andy Moore Honda, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. Get more to your door with AndyMooreHonda.com.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Courtroom Sports Grill in Bedford. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, here on this Tuesday. That means it's a Chronic Hoosier Tuesday. Welcome aboard, sir. Hope you're doing well.
Doing excellent. Thanks for having me back.
As always, K-Bro here as well. Kevin Brockway, as he is happy with his Mets that they're flying along in first place. I just found, we were talking to Mike DeCourcy, and, of course, senior writer for the Sporting News. They've been around since 1886, man.
Isn't it crazy?
I'm like, who the hell thought to start a sporting rag in 1886? Because somebody had to cover baseball. And I'm like, I didn't think of baseball being that popular then, but I guess it was. That was the advent of it. And I was thinking it would have started in New York, but it started in St. Louis.
I tell you what, man, never underestimate the historical power of the Cardinals, whether it was their print coverage, their radio transmitter. They've always been out in front of the game. But, the thing they had back then, though, is they had no other media competition. It was print or nothing. So, that was the exclusive means of acquiring your content, your news content, whether it be sports or anything else. So pioneers for sure, though.
I wonder why did Harry Carey leave the Cardinals to go to the Cubs?
He went to the White Sox before the Cubs, though, I thought.
Oh,
yes.
Wow.
And he and Jimmy Pearsall were a pretty popular duo also, yeah.
I bet you they were a pretty popular duo in the bars. I've told it's my favorite sports story of all time, and Chronic, you probably haven't heard it, so I'll tell it quickly. My favorite story ever. I got cussed out by Harry Carey when I was a little, punk growing up. I was working for CBS as a production assistant on, it was Major League Baseball telecast. The Cubs were at the Reds at the old Riverfront Stadium. Another girl who was working with me was from Chicago. She said, "Hey, let's go up and get Harry's autograph after the game." And I'm like, all right, I don't care. I'm not a Cubs fan, but I thought it'd be cool. And I had a friend that was just a weird Cubs fan. So I grabbed 2 balls off of batting practice and put them in my pocket. And then after the game, we go up and in the booth, and there was only 4 of us, and I'm first in line, and I've got the 2 baseballs, and, I'm thinking, hey, he's drunk. So I give him a ball, and hey, Mr. Carey, would you sign my ball? And he signs it, hands it back. Hey, Mr. Carey, I have a guy's a huge friend, the big Cubs fan. Would you? No, I signed your ball. And he just kind of, whisked me away. So I'm thinking he's drunk, like always, drinking in Budweiser's. There's only 4 of us, but I just get in line again and just kind of go back through the line and, hey, Mr. Carey, how are you? Could you sign my ball? No, I signed your ball. You son of a bitch. Now get the hell out of here. And he really shooed me away. But that's my favorite sports story of my deal. But
very on brand.
It was dead on, boy. He busted me out. But how's Chronic doing? The weather has arrived, as you said. You're in full summer mode. The freshmen for the basketball team have arrived. They were here for team camps. I heard someone say that CJ Gunn caught a big fish. So out there fishing. So man, they're having some fun.
Yes, they are. We are officially in full summer mode now, even though technically first summer session began about a month ago. Now that the high school obligations have wrapped up, we got the freshmen in town, moved in. Looks like they got them in Wilkie, which I believe is the most recently renovated dorm. So they're going to be well taken care of here for the year. But this is that time when
wait a minute, they don't get to live and evolve.
No, well, I think that's where they move after the freshmen. They want to immerse them in the full student experience as freshmen, so they still keep them in the dorm.
Agree.
But they previously it had been in Briscoe, but now that Wilkie's done, I think that's the preferred digs for the VIPs. But no, this is the time of year where get used to those workout videos. Cliff Marshall's always going to be posting those fishing pictures. He's over there in Hyde Park. And actually, it's funny. About 2 weeks ago, my son just discovered his little honey hole over there, and pretty nice little spot for in town, from what I understand. But this is the time of year where they're going to plant seeds for success down the road. Get these guys acclimated with the program and the system. Get some chemistry building, get some team bonding, and with any luck, that's going to be the only news, because usually during the summertime, the only news that comes out is generally bad news. So, hopefully it's just gains and everybody keeping their nose to the grindstone and, again, putting the seeds together for a successful season where it looks like they're going to be, preseason favorites to win the Big Ten this year. So something new for Indiana, or at least not experienced in a while, the weight of expectations to manage now on top of everything else. So it's in full swing. It's happening now, though.
Yeah, speaking about that bad news, I looked this up the other day. I guess that pretrial conference for Xavier Johnson is the 27th of June in the Monroe District Court. It got in downtown. It got pushed back, but it looks like they're going to have a pretrial conference and maybe work that thing out, which will be interesting to see and develop, see how that happens.
Based on my experience in that area, I would very much anticipate a settlement or to be reached, or a plea where all parties agree to some lesser charges, probably before then. Usually what happens in these instances, as the parties are gathering their information and sharing their positions and the supporting evidence and law, that's usually where the pleas get hammered out, is during this period right now. So I would fully expect that to be remedied and resolved by the time that conference date comes. But that's just my best guess based on some prior experience in those matters.
Exactly. And trust me, the price that's being paid it's exacting, I assure you, because the price is multiple. And if you think that he's not paying a price, I guarantee you he is in many ways, many ways. We talked earlier about a question of Indiana's ability to maintain a level, that elite level. They haven't gotten to an elite level yet, but they seem to be trending in that direction, as they are a favorite, not the favorite, but a favorite in the conference race next year, which 2 years removed, I've mentioned this several times, they're only 2 years removed from being at the bottom, being as pretty far down for the program. But that seems like that's a distant memory now. You've got a great class that's here on campus that is having fun, and everyone's looking forward to it. It's probably the best preseason for Indiana basketball fans. I don't know how far you got to go back, Chronic, but a long time, 12 to 13.
At least 12, 13, probably.
Yeah. And that was riding on some good hope. This one's a little different because you still don't know who the shooter's going to be. But I was talking to him. I'm like, man, don't count CJ Gunn out. He's a gunslinger type. He really is. And he may be a guy this year until he gets immersed, and I don't know, but he could be an up and down guy. He could be a guy that goes out there and gets 20 points one night once he gets on a run, because I've seen him do that in high school, man. I've seen him just light teams up in a fourth quarter. He did it a lot, and he did it from distance. So it's going to be interesting to see how these guys mix, who gets to play. I mean, everyone thought Indiana was deep last year, and they weren't. They had a lot of people, but they didn't have a lot of talent. They got a lot of talent now.
Yeah, that's going. There's a lot of questions heading into this season. Obviously, with the increased expectations, you certainly have an upgrade in talent. I think that's pretty much irrefutable at this point. You've got a good amount of returning minutes and experience coming back. Now a new challenge in addition to managing the expectations. Mike Woodson's going to have to keep that locker room happy, because you've got a lot of guys who are going to expect some playing time, and keeping that chemistry where it needs to be, keeping everybody on board. moving the program forward. But I think in the bigger picture, this is one of those paramount seasons. When you look at how new coaching hires work, early on, it's very easy to recruit off of promises, off of visions, off of hopes and dreams for what the program's going to become. It becomes exponentially harder, though, with each passing year. Once you've put tape down, once recruits have concrete information, evidence of what a coach does and how it works. And that cuts both ways, because there are staffs that are going to use that against you. So, as we've seen with prior coaching hires here at Indiana in the recent past, often some of the biggest recruiting success happens early on, and then it's going to rise or fall based off results on the court. So, Woodson was able to put together a hell of a class, all things considered, going into this season. Whether he's able to sustain that, though, is probably going to be what makes or breaks his tenure here at Indiana, because there's going to be a pretty significant departure of talent after this year. And that's the thing. It's not just putting together a great class. It's how do you sustain that talent? And the old adage in coaching, you want to get old and you want to stay old. They're there right now. Whether they can sustain that's going to be the $1 million question going forward. But the pieces are certainly in place to make a run. But now it's time that they have to actualize those hopes and those aspirations and those recruiting pitches and turn it into something tangible, because success breeds success, and kids want to play with winners. And that's ultimately going to be what determines probably this program's fortunes going forward. So.
And Chronic, I'll make this point: buy-in comes when you have a plan that works. I think that's the thing. I mean, whatever we always talk about effort and so forth and everything like that, kids are going to go the extra mile for you if you have a plan that works. And I think kids see that. I think athletes see that, right? They see that, if you have a faulty plan, and we've seen this with some, recent past coaches here at Indiana, it gets harder and harder, to get that extra mile that you're going to need to have success. Even though, you want all athletes to, be on all the time. It's easy to get discouraged if the plan doesn't work.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the inverse is true. Look at football last year. When things don't go to plan, how quickly things can unravel on you.
Well, that was a little bit slightly different in that football has never had backing of the fans or the school, really. And everyone had good reason to be on that train last year. And man, you talk about a derailment, buddy. That was as big a derailment as I've seen in football that I can remember in college football. And the sad thing is the fans were there, and if they have a successful season last year, just a moderate successful season, they beat Cincinnati, but some things coming into this year, that Illinois game, oh my God, it would be rolling. Because if Indiana had just done that with football, because basketball, there's already the excitement. So when you add that excitement, it's just an aggregate thing. Unfortunately, that's not going to be there, and I'm a little worried for Indiana in that opening game against Illinois. I hope the fans show up and show out. I don't expect a sellout, of course, but with it being a first game, I wonder what that's going to be like after what happened last year.
Well, that's the heightened risk and rewards of those higher expectations. And, I don't think anybody, historically would take issue with IU's record last year, even though it was lower than the mean. It's totally in character for Indiana football historically. What made last season different? Indiana started off ranked. Indiana started off with a boatload of expectations. For the first time, they had, attained some national respect in the polls and in the college media. So, it just made that fall that much farther. And, that's a risk that's increased with basketball this season. They absolutely cannot stand to have another one of those stretches during February like they did last year, where they just plummet in the conference standings. Momentum is a fickle thing like that, but right now they're heading into it with the tailwind, and everything is on the table for them this year, and I think that's what Indiana fans have clamored for years. national relevance, competitive, both in conference as well as on the national stage. And that's going to be put to the test, with the non-conference schedule that we've seen so far. The top end of that is as good as you've seen from Indiana in a long, long, long time. Football, now they're dealing with the opposite side of that coin. I don't think anybody expects a whole lot from Indiana next year outside of that locker room. And that's going to be a radical departure from last season. But I will say, the risks are probably just as great for Tom Allen, because if things don't go to plan, if he's not able to get it back on track, it's going to get awfully hostile in the Memorial Stadium fans and on the message boards and in, the employee lounges and around the water coolers around the state and around the country. So it's a big year, I think, for both programs, obviously at different points in the program arcs. But I think there is a lot at stake for both coaches, quite frankly, as they head into the next season.
I think Kevin, that the difference is, you don't have Trace Jackson Davis coming off a significant injury in ACL, whereas last year you had Michael Penix coming off that injury, and perhaps we were a little naive because we saw Mike Penix come off an ACL the first time and play at an extremely high level, and it didn't pan out the second time. And then by game 5, he was done, and then the injuries mounted. Plus, people forget too, last year, Tywan Mullen, another guy who went down in early October and wasn't the same with his leg. And I remember I asked Tom Allen that over the summer because he didn't play in the spring. I'm like, where is he? Because I think if there's one guy that can turn around Indiana's fortunes next year, it's Tywan Mullen. He's your only All-American back from that team in 2020. And he's a guy that, if he's playing as a lockdown corner in the Big Ten like he did in 2020 and making plays, it makes, as Tom Allen says, you can play your secondary so much differently when he's playing at that level.
And I also want to ask, since we've heard Ryan Day say it's going to take $13 million a year, basically a $13 million salary run for Ohio State. Indiana's not going to have that. We know that. But can Indiana can they use NIL enough? Can they get enough NIL in football? Because we know the interest is not the same in basketball. Not going to be naive to be competitive, to spend dollars wisely, land a couple of right players. Because to me, that's the only true option.
Well, I think that's certainly a component of the modern landscape, and it's going to be increasingly one. I think Indiana is well positioned with Hoosiers for good. But I think where the whole NIL thing is, and it's, still basically in its infancy, the market's going to have to normalize at some point. I think right now you're seeing no different than in stocks. There's a lot of volatility going on right now because so much of this is unknown. But so much of this is old hat at the same time. I mean, this is nothing different than what's happened throughout the history of college athletics. Boosters have always been involved in helping lure recruits and talent to the programs of their choices. Now it's just being done openly. Whether Indiana is able to compete with Ohio State, I doubt that world ever happens. But Indiana is certainly going to be able to outbid. Previously they basically recruited against MAC schools. Low-level Division I, Power 5 schools. Indiana has more resources than that, so I think they have some footing in the NIL landscape. But I think the biggest wild card is going to be Indiana's ability to develop talent. I don't know that you ever see a world where Indiana is able to compete with the likes of the Ohio States, the Michigans, the Alabamas, some of the SEC programs, that have historically been at the very top of the table. That said, though, as we've seen in the past, with savvy recruiting, savvy development, Indiana's still been able to put a decent amount of guys in the NFL. And I think that's testament to the way they assess recruits, the way they develop the talent when they get here. Now, with so much staff turnover taking place in the North End Zone, it's a huge wild card. It's a huge question mark heading into next season and those going forward. And I think ultimately, probably even more so than the NIL component to it, will determine the football program's fortunes going forward and whether this is going to be sustainable under Tom Allen.
I agree. Chronic, I cannot thank you enough as always. I hope the rest of your week goes well. Anything big plans on the docket?
You know, we are we're kind of laying low here this week, and I've got we got some plans up in Indy again, back-to-back weekends after just doing 3 nights up at Deer Creek.
Oh yeah, I meant to talk about that. When I said CJ Gunn caught a big fish, I was going to transgress right in, but we were going in a different direction. Speaking of fish, up at the old Deer Creek. Now there was a Clippich. Now,
it's the money is paid for the Ruoff name to be on the signage.
That's right, it's Ruoff. Which Ruoff is about everything. Man, they got their name on a lot of stuff now. But anyway, I saw fish up there for 3 nights. Man,
yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, the sidebar on that, I will no sooner call it Ruoff than I'll ever call it Simon Scott. It is forever Deer Creek and it's forever Assembly Hall, but it's one of those things where it was after 2 years of COVID, even though we saw some shows last year, a far more normalized time. There's just something magical about live music under an Indiana moon, especially with a bunch of your old friends. Had a bunch of friends from college back in town from all over the country, and always a good time up there. Got to take my kids up for the Sunday show, and it's not only wild to experience that with them, but it's also wild to think back to my first shows up there when you were just a little island in a big cornfield, and to have that development now completely surrounding the place. Just how times have changed. But good time, good music, good people. Good God, I'm old though, man. I'll tell you what, 3 nights and I am licking my wounds like nothing else. That hurt me.
I can't believe you did it. I can't believe you did it. I give it up to you, brother. I can't believe you did it.
I worked Friday, Saturday too, so it wasn't like this was a vacation by any means. We were cramming it in, but always worth it. Always a good time. But no, we're gonna lay low a little bit here. Got a wedding up in Indy this weekend, and then we are staring down a vacation down in sunny Florida here. So trying to take full advantage of B-Town summer and getting out of B-Town for a week, heading back down to Cape San Blas in Florida.
Have some Apalachicola oysters down there for me. It's good stuff.
I'll tell you what, the place we set up, there's a company called the St. Joe Shrimp Company. It's right outside of Port St. Joe, Florida. It's a 20-mile atoll. Great beach. It's actually voted America's best beach. But Shrimp Company is about 2.5 miles on either side of our beach house, and they have fresh caught Gulf shrimp and pretty much any other seafood you could eat. And that basically comprises the entirety of our dining when we're down there. That's every bit as much a part as the beach is having some great fresh seafood. They steam for you, seasoned to your choice, and just bringing it back in a big old aluminum foil tray and just everybody mowing down. I cannot wait. I can smell it.
Just remember, Chronic, it's okay to be a little shellfish, so
Chronic Hoosier, brought to you by our good friends at Andy Moore Honda, Bloomington. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Thanks as always for having me. You guys be well, and we'll catch you next week.
You bet. Make sure you look up Andy Moore Honda if you're looking for a new vehicle. They've got new ones for 1.9% APR financing in 48 months and many other great deals. We're back with more with K-Bro here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. Simply meet the Mets.
So we can touch on Will Power and also
how about this?
Vaughn Dunbar being in the
yes
on the Hall of Fame ballot.
And
okay.
How about NCAA baseball?
Yes.
My gosh, got a coach who got suspended for 2 games. Then an umpire shoves a batter out of a box for admiring his homer.
I saw that. Who was the coach that got suspended? I didn't see that.
I think it was North Carolina's coach.
Did Uconn hold on and beat Maryland or no?
I did not see that.
Let me see the final on that. Because that means that, if that happened, that means no Big Ten teams left because, Louisville lost to Michigan. So Maryland baseball, because they were down 6-1 and then it was 10-7. The last I saw it was like the 7th inning. The Gators lost to Oklahoma. A lot of SEC. Oh, yeah. Maryland lost it. Controversial call. So umpiring, a lot of umpiring issues this weekend in college baseball.
Man, yeah. And I don't know how you have that in this day and age with replay.
Yeah.
I really, really, really don't.
They said he was running out of the baseline. Okay, this guy from yeah. Bob Turtle Smith Stadium. College baseball, baby. Is Indiana ever gonna get? Are they gonna get back under Mercer? Well, they have a lot of good young hitters, right? But they got to get the pitching straight now.
I think they'll be fine.
All right.
I think they'll be good. They got a lot of youth. The two Utes.
Yep.
The two Utes.
It's 10:20, so we don't have a lot. We gotta move quickly.
Yeah. I had to get that break in.
Yeah, of course. No,
I missed one. But Joe, because normally that would have been a problem, but Evansville does not have a current commercial lineup, so I don't have to worry about them.
Evansville.
Y'all got 25.
What time does your show air in Evansville?
1 their time.
homepros.com or 317-298-0961. Cheryl Sizemore from Remax Advanced Realty. Let Cheryl Sizemore get you in the home you want today. Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com.
This segment is brought to you by Courtroom Sports Grill in Bedford. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. It is a Tuesday here at Indiana Sports Beat Radio, the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. K-Bro was with me, as always, Kevin Brockway from CNHI. Make sure you give him a follow. Also, hit subscribe and like if you're on YouTube. And that's where, if you're on Facebook, go to YouTube. Yep. Or if you're down at the ref, what's going on down in Evansville? 97.7 ESPN, WBRO 89.1. Hope everyone's having a great day. It looks decent out there. Got to get to some things quickly. NCAA baseball going on right now. I think North Carolina's coach got suspended for I know he got suspended. I think it's North Carolina's coach. It was some BS calls. I think, Michael, yeah, you're right. Maryland got hosed on a poor call. Wyatt says the umpiring in the CWS has been horrific, apparently, because I think it was North Carolina's coach that got tossed. So this is a whole different situation. Let's see. It's Forrest says, I believe they're playing in the Super Regionals. Not this. Yeah, I think that is correct. Yes, Forrest, you are correct. Let's see. Yeah, so there's that, and then an umpire shoves a batter out of the batter's box for admiring a home run.
Yes, I saw that video.
I like it, but how's that going to come across in this day and age of?
Yeah, you can't put your hands on an athlete. That was the big thing that we got here.
Gee whiz.
I could see both sides of it because he's trying to de-escalate a situation because I think there was someone else that, quote unquote, pimped a home run earlier in the game.
So, but if you separate someone from a fight, you got to put your hands on them.
I guess, yeah, but this, came across a little different, and you're
preempting a fight. It comes across different because of these. There's too many soft people. You know what he deserved to be? He deserved to have a foot across his rear end out of the batter's box. What do you think someone's dad would have done?
That's exactly what your dad would do if he was up there. He'd get you out of the batter's. Well, mine would have. And that's probably why I'm half psycho.
I don't know. I say if you're the umpire, hey, let it happen. The next guy's going to get hit in the ribs by the pitcher. And I guess he's trying to de-escalate that. But you want to know what? Yeah, if you want to say, okay, and I'm can't put it, you know what I mean? All right, well, let the frontier justice happen and let the poor kid, the next guy up, with the baseball cook, get hit in the ribs with the fastball. Or worse, if, college baseball players don't have good control. I mean, that's even worse. But I guess, with Maryland being bounced, this guy, Chris Bubba Aline, I guess, collided with the first baseman, and they said he was running out of the baseline. But only 2 teams from the Big Ten in, and neither one going to the Super Regionals. Michigan also lost to Louisville 11-9, so Louisville's moving on to the Supers as well. And not a good weekend for the SEC. Also, Florida, LSU get bounced. Vanderbilt gets bounced. A lot of traditional powers didn't make it out of their regionals as well. Southern Miss will be hosting a regional for the first time. And I think they'll be playing Ole Miss, your daughter's school. So that'll be an interesting rivalry in the Magnolia State.
Absolutely. Von Dunbar, former Indiana running back, one of the greatest ever at Indiana, probably second best running back in Indiana football history. Yeah. But on the ballot.
That's right. Was a first-team All-American in 1991.
College
bowl wins. Led them to 2 bowl, and the last bowl win, the Copper Bowl in 1991 under Bill Mallory. It's kind of amazing that the 2 best running backs in Indiana history were back to back. You can maybe go back to George Talafaro, right?
On the same team. They're on the same team.
Yeah. As an argument too, as far as a grade. Although, was George Talafaro running back or just a quarterback or an all-around back? He was,
He was a great athlete, is what he was.
Yeah.
But then you talk about the running backs, though. Anthony Thompson had a couple of brothers. They weren't too bad either, right? Ernie Thompson, right around him. Indiana had a lot of great running backs, and they've had a great running back. They've got a great running backs history. I mean, Tevin Coleman here of late.
Jordan Howard, right?
Jordan Howard, which that was a transfer deal, but yeah. But
your guy Stevie Scott's playing in the USFL,
Well, I guess if he's getting a check, that's all that matters, right?
I know, yeah. We'll see this year what they do at the running back position. I guess Sean Shivers and Josh Henderson, the 2 transfers, and they're really high on this kid, Jalen Lucas, too, the freshman from Louisiana, in terms of his speed. So,
let's see. This weekend, are you heading to the All-Star games?
Yes, I am going tomorrow night and up in Fortville, right? Mount Vernon High School, and then I'm going to go on Saturday. I'm going to go to Southport. Yeah,
I will probably do the same. I had planned to go to Owensboro. I don't know if I'm going to go down there, but yeah, planning on doing the same. What's coming up next for you?
We're doing the position breakdowns for Indiana. I'm on the centers now, so that'll be the last in that series.
This is basketball or football?
Basketball, yes, basketball. And of course Title IX. We've got an NIL series coming up on the year anniversary of the NIL that Elton and I are going to be teaming on, delving into how it's impacted college sports a year later, some of the situations. So yeah, a lot of stuff. It'll be a busy month. It'll be a good month, and looking forward to seeing some of these All-Star plays too, and NBA draft coverage as well. We'll see if Jaden Ivey, if he'll do a workout for the Pacers. I'll probably be up there. So a lot going on for sure. It's gonna be busy.
It always is, man. It always is. I'm looking forward to it. Joe, what's coming up tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Caught him off guard there. I meant to send him a text, but hey, how about that? Wednesdays, I know Kyle Nedenrip will be. We've got Bob Kravitz. Kyle Nedenrip will be joining us. Let's see. I'm trying to write that out. And then Rick Bozich.
Yep. Yeah, as far as I know, everyone's going to be there tomorrow, so it should be a great show.
So, well, it always is. You talk about Bob Kravitz, Kyle Neddenrip, and Rick Bozich. That's a lineup, man.
The 3, 4, 5. That's some heavy hitters there.
That's hey, boy, if you're in the 11th inning and you're needing it, you're feeling good right there. Well, I can't thank everybody enough, man. It has been awesome as always. What's up next for you? Oh, you just said you're covering the positions. And what'd you think of the junior quickly, 30 seconds, the junior all-star game in Bedford?
Yeah, no, and he's going to be quite a player. So apparently, and he's headed to Purdue, right? That kid.
Yeah.
He's to Purdue.
Yeah. I can't remember. He was from Penn High School. Had 17 points. Most of them come at the free throw line. 9 of 10 at the free throw line. But Xavier Booker wasn't there.
He was not there.
No, he didn't play. He was not there. I think he was playing at Pangos.
Do you think CJ Gunn is going to play this week, or because he's already enrolled at Indiana, or is he going to bypass it?
Yeah. Oh, he'll play.
He'll go up there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why would you not? He's got now. I think you have to go for practices. So
you know what's interesting is Trey Kaufman-Wren, broke his finger in that game last year, and that set him back.
But so that couldn't happen in practice.
I mean, it could happen anytime, but
exactly.
Some coaches are worried about the risk, and rightfully so. You would rather have it in a preseason practice where you're working towards an Indiana thing than if you're playing in an all-star exhibition. But the game, it still means something, I guess, to some people, right? That tradition of the game. And
speaking of games, speaking of games, it means something. Before I forget, and we get off of here, Never Lose Hoop golf outing coming up. Don't forget about that. Some great people like Forrest Gray has already sponsored a hole. Let's see. I turned my page. I didn't mean to do that. We've got people that are playing in the event. Jennifer's got a team. Ryan and Sherry's got a team. See, someone else has sponsored a hole, and I'm trying to get back there to my page that I was on, and I lost it already, but daggone it. Sam Joaquim, he sponsored a hole. So all of these are listeners, and we appreciate you that are getting involved in that. So make sure I'm trying to pull that up, but go to the Hoosier.com, and if you want to, you can play or whatever, but it's going to be a huge IU presence, June 23rd, Never Lose Hoop golf outing. That's going to wrap it up for us here at Indiana Sports Beat Radio from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Cannot thank everybody enough. Make sure you join the WOW Club at your Apple App Store or Google Play Store. Sign up, eat, drink, and earn. Until tomorrow, for Kevin Brockway, Mike DeCourcy at Chronic Hoosier, and Joe, the producer, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.